No doubt at all, the migrant crisis is still a massive big issue. One of Rishi Sunak, your Prime Minister, our Prime Minister's pledge, those 5 pledges, was to stop the boats. He definitely isn't doing that. One of the thoughts that he could do was to have a migrants return agreement with many different countries. But we can't return everybody to Afghanistan or Syria or Iran, but we could return them to their first country of entry, to the European Union. That was the hope. We've now seen a document in the front page of the Times today. They've seen this document. The EU has rejected our attempts to create that migrant return agreement. A European Commission official very close to Ursula von der Leyen told the British National Security Advisor this year that it was not open to a readmission deal. It's not going to happen. Does that put paid to the ability to stop those boats?
Well, frankly, I'm not surprised. I mean, the European Union, even when we were a member of it, was not particularly good at this. I mean, we had return agreements then, and I think they were distinctly one way from memory. And forgive me, but I'm just literally remembering back in the day, we took about 5 or 6 times as many from them as they took from us. So it didn't exactly work brilliantly in our interest. It's also quite difficult to determine where individual migrants first entered. They simply won't tell us. I mean, if they don't want to live in Poland, they want to live here, they're not going to tell us. You know, we know they already destroy their documents and destroy their passports and so on, so we don't know where they come from originally. So it's not great. I mean, I would, frankly, I'd prefer it if we did have such an agreement. But don't think it solves thousands. It may solve hundreds.
And this is the thing. But that's where all these issues do seem to keep coming together, which is that let's put people on the Bibi Stockholm barge. Or 39 people got on, had to get off because of total failure to do the proper checks on the safety checks for the boat. We'll send some people to Rwanda, but let's face it, we're talking about a few hundred people, not thousands. Even when 6 people tragically die, although I'd say entirely unpredictably die in the Channel on Saturday, 50 having to be rescued because of a rickety boat. 70 people on a boat meant for a fraction of that number being escorted by French vessels. Even when that happens, the next day, hundreds more people get on those boats. There doesn't seem to be any deterrent to these people coming from France.
No, the first thing to say is, I mean, Rishi said at some point that this needs a whole swathe of measures, not just one, and he's right about that. That is exactly right. Secondly, I mean, the one thing I do criticise the government for is it tends to pursue, or at least the Home Office tends to pursue headlines all the time. Look, the barge is a bigger headline than it is a solution. It's a nice big picture. You can see the thing. But, we're talking about 500 or so people. That's a couple of days arrivals. You have 2 barges a week from now on. So what you've got to solve is the whole system. And one of the problems with the Home Office, I mean, you may remember many years ago. I mean, you're too young to remember, but when John Reid became I
remember all of it. Yeah,
said this department's not fit for purpose. Well, I'm afraid it's gone back to that a bit, and so you start with the processing. If you remember last year, the numbers came out: 1.4 asylum seekers per caseworker per week. What? It should be 30 or 40, not 1.4.
Well, what is going on in the Home Office, though? Is this a problem with the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, and her ministers? Is it the permanent secretary? Is it senior civil servants? Is it those on the ground? Because clearly, again, decades on, that is still a department that does not work, is not fit for purpose. Who do we blame? Because, someone's to blame.
Well, I or maybe more than one, of course, but I had a long conversation. He came to see me from one of the previous, in fact, I think probably the best permanent secretary in the Home Office for 30 years or so. And I walked him through exactly that. He said, quite a lot of this is actually down to civil service itself. He said it's not down to ministers, particularly that asylum clearance rate. So there is an issue there, and it's got worse since COVID. I mean, I'm sorry, but working from home has proved a problem for Whitehall as a whole, and an awful lot of civil servants work from home who shouldn't be working from home now. We're not in the middle of a pandemic anymore. They should be going to work and doing the job properly. So there's part of that. So I think much of it is there and in attitude. I don't know. I mean, I hear, and this is secondhand, not direct, but I hear of Home Office civil servants who just don't like our policies and therefore not being very helpful. So I don't know that. I mean, as I said, I've heard that secondhand. But the the truth is, if you don't fix that, all these other measures, all these, Rwanda, barges, whatever, will just be headline issues.
Yeah.
They won't solve the problem.
And that's the thing. When you look at the impact of all of this on Tory chances in the next election, we're seeing, quite a long time. One of the reasons why Boris Johnson was ousted was because of the falling Tory polls, Labour ahead. But there was a lot of talk that it was, this was a soft Labour vote, and the Tories just got a grip. You got over Partygate, and you moved on. You could get a grip on this. And there were a lot of people who had high hopes for Liz Truss, but a lot didn't. A lot of people had high hopes for Rishi Sunak. He made 5 pledges in January, really clear-cut pledges. Halving inflation, growing the economy, falling debt as a ratio of the GDP, falling NHS waiting lists, and stopping the small migrant boats. And a lot of people at the time, the commentators were saying, well, I mean, those are pretty easy. The economy's going to grow, inflation will go down, NHS waiting lists will go down. Actually, none of it's looking very promising right now. What do you think the chances are that failure to meet those 5 pledges, as looks very likely, at least 3 of them are going to be failed by 2024 in January when he wants to be judged by it, is going to actually completely crash your chances of winning the next election?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that the British public are normally smarter than the commentators. All those ones who said, "Oh, these are easy; they're going to happen automatically." Yeah. But plainly, that wasn't right. Secondly, the effect of them being smarter is that they know that it's going to be incredibly difficult to get a solution to the small boats crisis. They're going to be looking to see whether there's an improvement. That's not at all the same thing, and they'll make that judgment. Same as with inflation and other things. So they'll be looking for that. And I think, but there's a third thing as well, and I think if you went around the public and said, do you think Rishi is committed and competent and hardworking and doing the job? They'll say yes, and that's why we halved the lead that Labour had when he came in. But it's going to need more than that. It's going to need. You're right, progress on all of these fronts. It won't necessarily be complete solutions, but significant progress, because that'll be better than Labour would have achieved. Secondly, I'm afraid the other half of this is going to be about what we used to call the vision thing, that Rishi has actually got an idea of how he's going to solve the housing problem for young people and what he's going to do about the perennial problems in waiting lists and so on, so that people can see where he's going and what he's promising. At the moment, what we've got is competence, but it looks very technocratic. Yeah. It looks very managerial, not as it were political leadership.
Yeah, no, but also you can't after 13 years. I know he's only been Prime Minister for a short time. You can't after 13 years keep saying this is what we're going to do. At some point, the British voters are going to go, could you actually have done something that you said you're going to do? Just finally, can I ask you about the economy? Latest figures, unemployment rate has actually gone up. Okay, it's still at very low levels compared to many other European countries. I mean, France would dream of having 4.2% unemployment rate. Average earnings, excluding bonuses, rising by 7.8%. That's a record amount in the last 22 years, going up in the last 3 months. The reality is, though, we've still got millions of people working age, many of them able-bodied, and certainly able-bodied enough to work from home, since that's what everyone seems to do now, not working, not contributing, living on benefits, not paying tax and contributing for other people. Is there any solution to this problem, and what is it, and when is it going to happen?
Well, so the first thing to say is, in terms of where those unemployment numbers are, I mean, before Brexit, the Treasury was saying, the lowest impact of Brexit was 500,000 more unemployed. Actually, we employ 1 million more people than before Brexit. So we're talking about a different level. Secondly, in terms of getting people back to work, well, there's going to be a whole load of measures. I mean, part of it, people, let's say of my age, well, actually, I'm above retirement age, but people who are
never retire.
Of more advanced years, shall we say, choosing to retire early. I think that's going to turn around. I think there's going to be a lot of measures and economic measures to help people with that. Yeah. Helping people who've got some disability to get back to work. That's a mixture of encouragement by financial measures and encouragement by other measures. It's like immigration. There'll be half a dozen solutions to the problem, not one. But you're right. Society's changing. If we don't get these people back to work, then the proportion of people in work to out of work is going to change systematically over the years, and we can't afford it.
Yep.
We just can't afford it. No country can afford it when you're competing with young nations who've got pretty much everybody at work. So it'll be a whole suite of measures, and anybody comes along and says, I've got one headline answer, they're wrong.
Absolutely. Here to that. Always so good to talk to you, former Brexit Secretary David Davis. Thank you for that.